All right, I saw the season finale, or series finale, part one, Stranger Things. So there's more to come. Yes. But watched it in its entirety, and well, hey, look, the second half, maybe it'll pick up and really have a satisfying ending and whatnot, but I doubt that it'll change my opinion that this is a show that went on too long, and he almost immediately got repetitive and that sort of thing. Yeah, they tried to go off into this or that, and and they did have, it's for the last one, there was the cliffhanger in the preview of the third season, and you got to get Hopper back, and so that gave them a little something there of adventure for them to do. And then you had the big, disaster that happens when you reveal the real villain behind it all, and of course now it's round two of that for the main adversary in all of this. And so they develop some of that, but for the most part, it's just the goofiness of the show that was part of the charm of it. There are the tropes in it. It's not just the aesthetics of the show, but the actual plot points and tropes that they do for the kids to save the day. That is very reminiscent of the stylings of movies of the sort from the 80s, and so the nostalgia is very much there, and it struck a chord, and that goes a long way of explaining the success of Stranger Things. But ultimately, it really has already run its course, in my opinion, and it has its fandom, and I'm sure it'll do well. I'm not sure what the numbers are for viewing at this point for Netflix on it, but and I can understand why they're stretching it out rather than just drop all the episodes and have at it, but there were some things like, oh well, that's kind of interesting, I guess, but really it was kind of a struggle to stay interested. It's not a lot here. There's one thing they did that it should come as no surprise to anyone. I thought it was a plot point that they would visit, but they took forever till damn near the end to deal with this, where another character is developing powers. But of course, they had to do it as an analogy for his homosexual awakening. But the problem with that, per se, is that they've already done it, not with his superpowers, the revelation of that, but his story of detailing who he is, why he is, and the crush he has on his best friend, who's the boyfriend of L11, and all that. Also, why he started to kind of turn against her because he was jealous of her, and that whole thing. But it played out the narrative there, the revelation that he's gay, and it was witnessed by his brother. So you had that where the brother understands what's going on and feels bad for him because he's pretty isolated with that, and it's not really his place to say anything, so he's not going to tell the other guy about it. So it's kind of this sad scenario for him. So then they repeat this again through one of the newer characters that they'd introduced previously, and she comes out as gay. So they and then meets this woman who, surprise, she's gay too. What are the odds? Even though she was with a guy and all that, but whatever. And so now, she takes the place of the brother. It's the same sort of pattern story, even though they're older and all this sort of stuff, which also adds more to why is this such a discovery, or anything like that. And it's like the language of it is, oh boy, it's really hinting at he does have these abilities, and it's more than just he recognizes when the monsters are on on their way or what have you, and that sort of thing. But because of its so repetitive in the nature of it, and that this is ground you've already covered Well, it kind of takes away from the story, whereas the discovery, just that in and of itself, of his powers, could have been something. It really wasn't all that. It's like supposed to be this surprising midpoint for the end of the first part, but it really isn't. It's like I figured it out sometime, and I kind of thought of that in previous seasons, considering what happened with him and everything. But why they, for the representation purposes and all that. So when it's so on the nose, it defeats the purpose of your honest narrative. It says, okay, this is the story of this character. That's what he deals with and all that. And it's an original character, so there's none of this, painting over with a established character and that kind of thing to where it's forced or what have you, which can also take you out of the story. But all in all, the rest of it is, I don't know, they're kind of in their own version of the Matrix, where you're in a dream world, but you're really being cocooned, and that's another thing. The imagery, of course, it was always kids being harmed and taken by the monster and all this sort of stuff. Is the imagery they use in this, that's a little too much. I would have gone for something else or whatever, but they did it. But you got this. Well, this girl, she has her storyline that's going through it, and all that. It works for what it is. So there's a connection there for some of the other characters and opportunities for heroism eventually. Then the rest is, Elle and Hopper, and more of their story as far as anything else they do. But I got to tell you, Millie Bobby Brown's the only one that'll probably come out of this as, more of a career. She already has one. But man, they showed her training and stuff, and she doesn't do action scenes very well. So I'm thinking maybe after this, maybe as she goes into other genres and stuff, might want to, because you don't want to get typecast as the Superwoman and stuff like that. So, but anyway, of course, it's this father-daughter thing they're doing, and he wants to protect her. Then she is like, well, I've got the powers, I can protect you. That sort of thing, back and forth. Meanwhile, the military comes in. And, of course, after the big disaster that happened last season, there they are. So there's some elements of it that was sort of interesting, but for the most part, they're just fodder for military guys to be crapped on and just brutally killed here and there. That's on par with it's even worse because you're actually killing them in some of the other disturbing scenes in there. So this is, it's okay because Hopper says so. He was a grunt, but these guys are special forces, and that makes them bad. Or I don't know. And then Linda Hamilton shows up in here, but basically, they don't give her anything. Not really. At least she's not a drunken idiot like she was in Dark Fate in this one. But ultimately, look, it's Linda Hamilton. That's about it. So pretty lackluster in a lot of ways. And ground they've already covered, and not a whole lot to it. They go through their, like I said, the 80s tropes of stuff where they got to come up with a plan to save these kids that are targeted and all that. And, some of it's okay. But for the most part, so maybe part 2 will save the day and at least give it a satisfying conclusion. But ultimately, they probably should have wrapped this up last season. But they didn't. You want to milk this cow as long as you can, and that's what they've done. So there you go. my take on part 1 of the series finale of Stranger Things.